Okay, welcome to JC Connect. In the previous class, we were discussing about the pH experiment. So today we'll try to finish the turbidity as well as the conductivity experiment. So in the pH experiment, so it is one very important parameter which is going to monitor most of the biological chemical processes which are happening in and around the world. Okay, water is an very important part. If small variation in the pH is going to happen, so that is connected uh, things are going to affect. So if some changes is going to happen in the water, normally first we'll go for the pH test. So then we'll go ahead with the other parameters. So in the measurement of the pH using the instrument, we'll do it. So before that, we'll go with the calibration process. So in the calibration test, um, uh, what we did in the pH test is that um, initially uh, initially um, the temperature corrections we have to do it, that I have explained. Okay, so then second thing is that so calibration button is there. So easy using the calibration button. So that is pH um, 4, pH 7, and pH 9. So with this, we have to calibrate it first. Okay. So ca- once we finish the calibration process, then we have to take the unknown sample. Unknown sample. To take the unknown sample, then we have to measure it. So of course, it is going to display um, the display value. We have to note it down. Of course, it has the accuracy of 2-point scale after decimals. For example, 4 is there, 4.12, 4.13. So this you will get it. This is the advantage of this using the instrument. And I also explained the principle behind this experiment. So of course, it acts on the principle of electromotive force, that is EMF. That is EMF. Okay, electromotive force by the ions that are present in the water. Okay, so then slowly um, we'll move on to the we'll move on to slowly we'll move on to the turbidity experiment. Okay, the turbidity is nothing but it is the clarity of water is an um, clarity of water is an important in producing a product destined for the human consumption and in many manufacturing operations. So turbidity in water is caused by the suspended and colloidal matter. Okay, very important. It is due to suspended and colloidal matter such as clay, silt, and finely divided organic and inorganic matter, and plankton and other microscopic organisms. So turbidity is an expression of optical property that causes light to be scattered and absorbed rather than transmitting with no change in the direction or the flux level through the sample. I'll explain it later. Okay. First, before moving on to this turbidity, first we'll classify the solids. It's very important factor. So solids, we are classifying solids, we classify two types. So one is, later we'll classify inorganic, organic. Then one more type, yeah, also you can, one more type, that is biodegradable and non biodegradable. So one type of it is inorganic and organic, and solids biodegradable and non biodegradable. See, this almost inorganic, that will classify again sometimes um, biodegradable and non organic, almost all. Okay, I'll check the difference. So I'll tell you the difference: biodegradable and non biodegradable. Non non biodegradable. Okay. So inorganic, in the sense it does not contains, not containing carbon. It does not contain carbon, will not be there. Organic, C will be there. Okay. One thing we have to conclude that not all inorganics are non-biodegradable. Most of the inorganic, most, you can say 95% of the inorganic are non-biodegradable. Okay, we can say it is only 5% are biodegradable. It is in the, here in the inorganic case it is reverse. Most of the organics are biodegradable. You can say most of the organic are biodegradable, and some of the things are non-biodegradable. For example, if you take endosulfan pesticide, endosulfan, okay, uh, it also contains carbon in the structure, but it is not readily biodegradable. You can use the word readily biodegradable. Okay, so a lot of discussions are required whether all inorganics are biodegradable, all inorganics are not biodegradable, whether all organics are degradable. So like that. So overall, you can say, okay, inorganic compounds are non-biodegradable, organic compounds are biodegradable. Okay, 5 to 10% of the things are non-biodegradable. Okay, so this is one classification, and this one is one more classification. So then, see, overall classifications, we are making the solids into three phases. One is suspended solids, suspended solids. Second one is dissolved solids. Third one is colloidal, colloidal solids, colloidal solids. Okay. So again, biodegradable, you can classify, you can connect here. Non-biodegradable, you can connect here. Biodegradable, you can connect here. This all. Okay. So you can suspended biodegradable solids. Okay. Then dissolved biodegradable solids. Then colloidal biodegradable solids. Then again suspended non-biodegradable suspended solids. Okay. Dissolved non-biodegradable or inorganic. So like that. Okay. Each of this you can classify like this. Okay. So this is also can do the classifications. So this is one, and this is one. Okay. So if you go on classifying in depth, okay, this is what the overall classifications. Inorganic, again biodegradable, non-biodegradable. Organic, biodegradable, non-biodegradable. So, so whichever the solids you are discussing, you should have the knowledge of all these solids. So we'll forget now these upper things. Now we'll see these things only. One is suspended, dissolved, and colloidal. These suspended solids are always solids which will 99, 90 to 95%. This will settle under the influence of the gravity. Under the influence of the gravity, these particles are going to settle. Dissolved particles, always movement will be there in suspension. If the water is there, always these particles will not settle. Okay, almost these particles will having the charges. If you take NaCl, salt, sodium chloride, if you take and if you dissolve it, you cannot see it. Any particles you cannot see it, and even these particles will not settle also. Colloidal particles also, you can see some particles, but these particles will not settle. So if you take chalk or if you take lime, CaO, lime is nothing but CaO. If you take lime and if you dissolve it in water, dissolve it in water. So lime always, uh, lime particles, if you dissolve it in water, it will not settle under the influence of the gravity so easily. Okay, I word use so easily. So after a long time, it will settle. Even if you take chalk powder and if you put it in water, okay, small quantity, if you take it, always you can see the color of the water is, it will be a blue, it will be a white color. Okay, it will completely like milk color. If you take chalk powder and if you dissolve it in water, if it will turns to slowly milk color. Okay, but hardly you can see only 5 to 10% of the settlement, but most of the particles will be in the upper surface. Always the movement will be there. So they are nothing but the colloidal particles. The colloidal particles will not settle under the influence of the gravity. So you have to make it settle with the help of by adding some of the external agents. Which are those external agents? We already learned in our fourth semester, that is 18 CV 46, that is water supply and treatment engineering, that is coagulant. By adding the coagulants, we are removing these colloidal solids, remember. Okay, then we are defining the turbidity experiment now. Okay, now the turbidity is caused due to the suspended and colloidal solids. Remember this, suspended and colloidal solids. It is suspended is 10%, colloidal is 90%. So 90% of the particles, if the colloidal particles are, definitely it will causes the turbidity. Okay, if 10% settlement will be there, no problem. Okay, then these are divided into finally organic and inorganic. If you go back to the previous classification, okay, suspended solids, most of the time it will be organic and inorganic in nature. Colloidal solids, organic and inorganic in nature. Okay, then it is majorly due to the, remember the turbidity is due to colloidal as well as the suspended salt particles. But most of the solids, major portion, it is go to the colloidal solids. Okay, then how exactly it will be measured? Okay, it will be measured in the principle of Beers and Lambert's law. Beers and Lambert's law. So what is this Beers and Lambert's law? That also will explain. See, the Beers and Lambert's law, what it will say is that the absorbance is directly proportional to the concentration. Okay, or transmittance is inversely proportional to the concentration. As the absorbance will increase, the concentration will increase. As the transmittance will increase, the concentration will decrease. Okay. So this is the Beers and Lambert's law. So what is this absorbance and all those things? So when it comes to the absorbance, okay, again I have to explain the your what we can call electromagnetic spectrum. Electromagnetic spectrum. Okay. In this electromagnetic spectrum, if you see that table, it is there in the PUC. Okay. So it has its different regions will be there in electromagnetic spectrum. So you have UV region. So you have after that visible VIS, visible region, and infrared region. And here always your electromagnetic spectrum is given with the help of the wavelength and frequency. So as you move on to from left to the electromagnetic spectrum from left to right, so wavelength will decrease, remember. Okay, wavelength will it will increase. For example, here it will be your UV region will start from 190 nanometer to 360 nanometers, then 360 to somewhere around 700 nanometers, it will be visible region. So then 700 to around 1100, so you have the infrared region. So below this UV region, you have X-rays, you have alpha rays, beta rays, gamma rays, and laser. This region will comes under this region. Okay, so that normally we can call it as below UV region, all the rays will be there. Why I'm discussing this? Because in turbidity, these lights, one or the other lights, we are going to pass it. Okay. See, in turbidity experiment, we are passing the visible rays, VIS rays. Okay. Simple, one small equipment is there, that is nephelometer or turbidity meter. We are using it. Turbidity meter. With the help of the turbidity meter, we are measuring it, the measurement of the turbidity. Then unit is NTU. NTU stands for nepheloturbidimetric unit. How exactly it is we are going to measure it? Okay. So assume that we have the sample. Okay. The sample we are transferring to a small cuvette or the transparent bottle, which is transparent, cuvette of this bottle, which is having 10 ml capacity. 10 ml capacity, it is there. 10 ml capacity. So it will be up like this. Assuming that we are transferring the colloidal solids containing solution to this. Okay. Then what will happen is that visible rays is going to hit to these particles. See, what will happen is that whichever the particles are there inside the cuvette or the bottle, these particles will be absorbed. The light is going to absorb by these particles. Okay, assuming that I have 10% absorbed and 90% is transmitted. So only 10% of the light which is coming from this direction is absorbed by these particles. So that we can call it as absorbance. Okay, that we can call it as absorbance. Okay, sometimes what will happen is that if particles are more, assume that it is heavily particles are there. Sometimes what will happen is that 100% absorption is going to happen, then no transmittance, then zero transmittance, because whichever the light which is coming from this direction is absorbed by 100% absorbed by all the particles. Okay, that normally we can call it as absorbance. Okay, now you might have understood the concept what is the absorbance. Then transmittance is remaining. For example, what will happen is that if according to this, if 100% absorbance means more concentration, means 90% absorbance, 90 normally it is not absorbance is not measured in percentage, remember. So it is absorbed in MAU, milli absorbance unit. Okay, so 90 milli absorbance unit means, okay, that much concentration. So 80 a little bit lesser. So as the absorbance is go on increasing, absorbance of the particles go on increasing, the concentration or the turbidity is also go on increasing in terms of NTU. Okay, so how much if the absorbance is increasing, your NTU is also go on increasing, means turbidity is also go on increasing. But in the other case, what is happening is that you check this. Okay, we'll have this relation. See, 90% absorbed, so 10% transmitted. So 80% absorbed, 20% transmitted. So 70% absorbed, 30% transmitted on this other direction. Okay. Then 60% absorbed, 40% transmitted. So what is happening is that when 90% absorbed, solids are more, we can see the transmittance. This is transmittance and this is absorbance. 10% is only. When 80%, when the solids are decreasing, you can see that solids are decreasing, but what is happening is that here it is increasing. When solids are decreasing, you can see the transmittance is increasing. Okay, transmittance is increasing. Now we will establish the relation. Solids are decreasing, your transmittance is increasing. Solids are increasing. Assume that if it is moving from this direction, if the solids are increasing, even the absorbance is also go on increasing. So this is what our relation. Okay, now you remember when absorbance is increasing, your turbidity or the concentration will also increase. Okay, that you have to remember. That is why I established the relation, that is absorbance is directly proportional to the concentration, and the transmittance is inversely proportional to the concentration. Okay, see, whenever what will happen is that I said that, okay, so then whenever the light is going to hit, that visible light is going to hit to this cavite or particle, then some light will be passes through this cavite, then light will be captured by the sensor. Okay, and some of the particles, it will be reflected back. Whenever the particle will be there, whenever it is going to hit, some of the particles will be reflected back. Okay, and sensor will be on this side as well as this side. Transmitted light or scattered light. transmitted or scattered light will be captured by the sensor. Okay, once it is going to capture by the sensor, then automatically it will display the value in terms of NTU. Okay, now overall what will happen is that whatever the light, visible light, which is going to hit to the particles, then that particles, some of the particles will be absorbed and some of the particles will be scattered and some of the particles will be transmitted. One sensor will be kept inside the instrument or the nephelometer, so that is going to capture how much light is going to be absorbed or how much light is going to be scattered. That will be captured. Based on that, it will give the value. Okay, suppose if the sensor is on this side, other side of the transmitted, what we are transmitted light, if it is capturing, okay, based on this value it will give. Suppose if the sensor is on either side, then the light whichever 50% absorbed and 50% is scattered. Okay, so then if this is based on the absorbance principle, it will give the value. Okay, maybe we'll have the demo whenever we'll going to attend the regular lab classes. Okay, now overall you can understand that. Okay, the principle behind it is absorption principle as well as the scattering principle, and the unit we are measuring, that is in terms of NTU. NTU stands for nepheloturbidimetric unit. Okay, now we already finished the pH experiment, so there we have calibrated it. Here also we have to calibrate the instrument before starting the equipment. So for that we have to prepare standard NTU solutions. So we'll prepare 0 NTU, we'll prepare 10 NTU, and we'll prepare 100,000 NTU. Okay, first we'll prepare 0 NTU, nothing but distilled water. We'll take the distilled water and we will keep the distilled water inside the instrument. Okay, we'll take the distilled water and we'll pour it into the beaker or the jars. We'll transfer it. Okay, then we'll keep that inside that instrument, and two knobs will be there. One is 0 and one more is calibration. Okay, so whenever you put the 0 NTU, we'll take this button and we'll set it to 0 NTU. Then we have in the calibration button, you have the different knobs will be there, 10, 100, then we have 1000, like it will be there. Okay, whenever if you are again, once you set 0, remove that solution, then again take a 10 NTU solution, then set to this instrument, it has to display 10. When the display button will be there or display thing will be there, it has to display 10. Suppose if it is not displaying, adjust it to 10. Then 100 NTU, adjust the calibration knob to 100, then place the sample of 100 NTU and it has to display 100. Okay, similarly adjust the knob to the 1000 and it has to display 1000. So 4 samples you have to take it, and 4 times you have to place that respective solutions to that jars, and it has to display the respective NTU solutions. Once it is done, it is calibrated. So calibration means with the known solutions we have to adjust the equipments. Okay, maybe we'll have the demo how exactly we are going to do it, but at present the calibration has to be done before keeping the samples. Once the calibration is done, then what you have to do is that you have to place the unknown sample, then just you have to note the whichever the NTU we are getting it. Okay, so this is overall about the turbidity experiment. Turbidity experiment. The remaining um, conductivity experiment we will have in the next class.